This is it. This is the last one. This is the final Lust of the Dead movie. I could not be happier to have this finally over and done with once and for all. In case you've missed all the other years that I've done this, Lust of the Dead is now sort of a Halloween tradition on this YouTube channel. It's a series of softcore porn movies about, well, rape zombies, which in fact is its less than subtle Japanese title. These films are directed by one Naoyuki Tomomatsu, who, as we found out last Halloween, can direct good things, but chooses to direct trash. They are awful, terrible, and worst of all, a slog to sit through. So I don't recommend you going to watch them on your own. I do recommend watching my reviews of each movie, if only so you can see my video editing get progressively better in each video. So there's no turning back now. From this point on, we will be rid of rape zombies forever. This is it. Let's talk about Lust of the Dead 5. So let's catch everyone up to speed from the last 4 movies. Rape zombies are a group of all-male zombies that kill women by raping. They've taken over the world as the series has become post-apocalyptic since Lust of the Dead 2. This culminated in a big-ass battle between rape zombies aided by uninfected and misogynistic otaku, raiding a compound controlled by an all-female military group. Lust of the Dead 5, of course, follows up the revelation from Part 4, which was that the nurse was using orgasmic time travel to try and save the maid. And if that makes no sense to you, I'm sorry, we just have to move along. We have no time to go back for the wounded, we just have to keep pressing forward. This time travel element means that most of the film is spent traveling back to different points in the rape zombie movies, almost like a best of compilation, if these movies could have anything that could be considered best, that is. So even after the movie's 20 plus minutes of recap, it still continues using clips because of the time travel element, meaning that this entry probably has the least amount of new footage. In fact, it looks like they weren't even able to get the maid's actress back for some of the scenes that take place in the past. So you might think to yourself, well, that's okay. If they go full Back to the Future too, then it'll at least be entertaining. But that's not what happens. Instead of seeing a new perspective on events from past movies, we get the exact same perspective. We see the exact same events play out using the exact same footage, with the only minor difference being that 2 characters end up not dying. Other than that, it's just scenes we've seen before. Not just from the other Lust of the Dead movies, but from this very own movie because it was all in the 20-minute recap. This is until the film's 3rd act, which is one hell of a problem in and of itself. This is where the maid's hermaphrodite godchild forces themselves onto the nurse. You're just gonna have to trust me that they have both parts because, well, they show it in graphic detail. The plan is to conceive a new race of humans because the karma of the universe wills it and prevents the godchild from being killed. I legitimately do not know where I expected this series to go, but this was not a turn I was expecting at all. However, I can't help but think there was nowhere else for it to go. And of course, because this is a rape zombie movie, this rape lets the nurse time travel backward, along with the otaku character for no other reason than to give her someone to talk with, until they go back to her high school days when she was gang raped by the rugby team. Oh, and this is all intersected by the eye patch guy and the robot head talking misogynistic philosophy again about how women secretly want it all the time. For all I know, this could be reused footage from part 4 again, because it legitimately doesn't make sense that these characters even exist at this point when their timeline has been erased. And I wish I didn't care so much about the continuity of a Rape Zombies movie. You see, I can't go on anymore. Recapping this movie is pointless. I've already said everything that needs to be said about the series in 4 videos. This movie ends on such a sour note. The nurse kills herself, and in doing so, seems to avoid the timeline where the rape zombies take over, but before she offs herself, she rejects the otaku character in what is basically one of those "why don't girls like nice guys" comics put to film. I can go on about how sexist and gross this whole situation is, but I've done that before. I could say that I do admire Tomomatsu's low-budget attitude and how he has made some decent movies, but I've done that before too. So what are we left with? After all this time, what am I left with? When I finished this movie, I felt empty on the inside. Even the satisfaction of knowing that I was done with these movies didn't give me any pride, because to be completely honest, a straight review or recap of this movie was something I had already moved beyond as a video maker. I don't really feel fulfilled making videos that are just a synopsis of what someone else has made, even when the subject in question is rape zombies. But I knew that I was left with this lingering feeling, a feeling that something about this whole series was incomplete. I had to look for answers. My first thought was that I could try to connect with the director over Twitter. You know, just shoot him a DM and set up an interview. But no luck. Tomomatsu had no Twitter, at least none that I could find. But I didn't want to give up just yet. I began to look over the cast list on IMDb. There must have been some weak link in there that I could use for the answers that I wanted. However, this was more difficult than I expected. The cast was either improperly credited or adult film actresses. Knowing the amount of people that were probably already sliding into those DMs, I figured it was probably unlikely that I'd be able to get a hold of any of them. Then, as I went back to the cast list of Lust of the Dead 1, it hit me. There was a single name and a character that I didn't even recognize from this film, but I knew who he was. This was Norman England. He is in fact the Blues Campbell's guy from Tomomatsu's earlier film, Stacy.
しかもブルース・キャンベルの右手2はステイシーを3体再殺しても刃こぼれしないんだ。それに刃の交換だってワンタッチで OK さ。
ブルース・キャンベルの右手がさらにバージョンアップされて新しくなったってことですかね。その通り。
Knowing that I'd at least be able to ask him questions in English, I sought him out for an interview. Hello, I run a YouTube channel dedicated to more obscure and niche Japanese topics. I've actually talked about several of the films that you've been in. Would you be interested in doing an interview for the channel? And if you're still in contact with Naoyuki Tomomatsu in any way, I have so many questions for him. Hi, thanks for writing. At the moment, I am dealing with some insane deadlines, so I am unsure if I can join in a chat. Please check back a little down the road. I left the Tomomatsu scene after Rape Zombie 2/3. I just got fed up with it, to be honest. I think he lives close to me, but I haven't seen him in years. He's on Facebook, I think, if you want to try and reach him there. This hit me like a ton of bricks. Facebook was not something I had considered at all. I still had my doubts as to whether I'd be able to message him directly. So I sought out any official Facebook pages that Tomomatsu might have. After all, it's not uncommon for directors to have their own pages where you can follow them, like Paul Schrader or Kevin Smith, neither of which will return my messages, but we'll get to that another day. But that also turned up with no results. Strange that there wasn't even a fan page for him, right? Well, that's when I realized that Tomomatsu had a normal Facebook account, and it looked like he mostly posted movie updates on it. But as far as I knew, this was his personal account. Not wanting to be rude, I sent him a message best I could in Japanese. No response. So I sent him another message, this time in English, hoping that it would catch his attention. No response. Then, in desperation, I sent him a friend request, thinking that it would be unlikely that he would ever friend a completely random English speaker. A week later, I received a notification. Naoyuki Tomomatsu had friended me. I had my foot in the door. This was my chance to ask Tomomatsu anything I wanted about these films that have tortured me for years. But there were still uncertainties. Would he even understand the questions that I asked? Would he even reply back? And what would I even ask? I had been so worried about contacting him for this video that I wasn't even sure what aspect of Lust of the Dead I wanted to ask him about. The thought itself overwhelmed me. It filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. Nervously, I typed out the only question that my mind could even begin to fathom in response to these films. It was the only question that I needed answers for, and it is one that I had been asking for years. No response. Now I was left with half a video about a film that I didn't want to talk about, and half about hunting down a man that I never got to talk to. These Lust of the Dead videos are some of my most viewed videos in the channel's history, and that's no accident. I know why people are coming to these videos, and I know why they usually don't stick around to see my reviews of more thoughtful movies. But still, I had built this channel around viewing and reviewing these garbage movies. But if these are trash, then what am I? I was a leech on the bosom that was Lust of the Dead. Was I no better than the Coomer that watches these with no shred of irony or conceit? No, I was far worse. The poison that was Lust of the Dead had infected my mind. I had let it consume me to the point where I had reached out to the director himself for nothing more than a simple part in a video. And for what end? To provide content that's simply absorbing and regurgitating the fruits of someone else's efforts? Where did that leave me? Is the man that reviews a porno 5 times and calls it terrible each time any better than the man that makes the porn? Maybe the real rape zombie was me. My pain is constant and sharp. I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my review. This video has meant nothing.